Good evening, everybody. It's Duncan Byron here, and I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm so excited to be able to introduce our guest speaker of the night. It's Francis Dolley. Yeah. Now, Francis has been making a huge splash in the property industry recently. He's built up a hugely successful and profitable business in an extremely short amount of time. He's one of the UK's top authorities on rent-to-rent. He's the author of the book Mayhem, Murder and Multi-Lets, and he's the host of the Somerset Property Meet. He's a trainer, speaker, entrepreneur, and the list goes on and on. So I think it's probably best for me to shut up and hand you over to the very capable Mr. Dolley. Francis, it's absolutely great to have you on the webinar tonight.
Hi Duncan, thank you very much for the introduction. My goodness, is that all me? Am I all those things? I'm shocked.
You recognise it?
No, it's peculiar really, because only a few short years ago, I was a carpenter and a builder. So goes to show what you're able to achieve, I suppose, if you get your head down to do some work. And it comes as a bit of a surprise to me as well, to be honest. So thanks very much for that. Yeah.
Not at all.
So should we just get things done away? Yeah.
We've got a huge amount of content to get through. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. Well, here's a little photograph of me. That, of course, is me on the left. My business partner is also my daughter, is Emily. She's not going to be on tonight because the thing Emily's found she's got a great skill at is leverage. And she leverages everything and everyone, including me. So I tend to do a lot more of the work. Yet she gets 50% of the income, but I'm fine with that, you know. So she's not here tonight, but I thought it'd be nice to put a picture of you up so everybody can see your lovely self on the screen as well. Okay. So just to give you a quick rundown of how things have gone for us. As I said, a few short years ago, I was a carpenter. My wife's an accountant, and we became a bit disillusioned with things. We seem to be just stuck in the machines, sort of endless work. And I don't know if you've heard that thing that people say most people are only 3 months away from being broke. Well, I thought that didn't apply to us, but one day I sat down to try to figure things out, and I thought it's almost us. And I thought I'd been working as a builder and a carpenter all that time for years and years and years and years, and then if I was out of work for 6 months, I'd be in a really difficult situation. So I decided 3 or 4 years ago to do something about it. So I got some training. I paid quite a bit of cash to do some training with a company called Progressive Property. And here's me and my daughter Emily on stage with Rob Moore in Wembley, actually. That was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And that's when we done our big launch of our rent-to-rent system, the multi-let cash flow system, and it was quite a big audience then, and we were petrified. I couldn't tell you. So yeah, that's us up close. That's when Emily's hair was red, and ever since then we've done like a series of events. We've done actually about 28 events, I think, of training events from Manchester to London. We do quite a lot in Somerset and in Bristol, because that's where we live, and we don't like to go too far from the Shire. But you can see we've done quite a lot of events there. I'm not sure what I was getting a standing ovation there for, but it must have been something. And we built quite a community up as well. We've got over 420 now in the community, because I really believe that support is such a huge thing. A lot of people go on to training courses, and when the training course is over, that's the last time you see the presenter. But we like to give support. It's a big thing. So I was asked to speak at Berkshire Property Meet last month. So I'm down there with my team. You can see my son on the right, James, Emily in the background, Andy, Will, and Joe, and me and my wife Jane in the front there. This was kind of a serious part in the talk. That's when I told people about my book. I've just written this book, as you said, and that's why people seem a bit glum there, you see, in the background, because they think I'm going to try to sell them the book, and nobody likes being sold to. But as soon as I told them they're going to get a book for free, you can see the whole kind of atmosphere in the place changed, and everybody was happy. People like free stuff. And then we've been growing over the years, and so we've expanded out. This was actually an agent's day, because a lot of people we find in property have got a bit of a fear of agents. So we decided to do a joint venture with some of the best agents in England. We got these guys on board, or they got on board with us, in fact, and this is our first event we did with them last month, and we're doing another one in November. Yeah, so that's pretty much a quick kind of rundown of all the events that we've been doing for the past 2 or 3 years. So, cracking on this evening, the 5 things we're going to be talking about, or I'm going to be talking about, is why is this the perfect time to be doing rent-to-rent? Why it's so important to build a team from day one. You know the word hindsight. They say hindsight is great if you look back. So when I look back to when we began doing rent-to-rent, we've been doing it for a good 2.5 years now, I think. All the things that I would have done and should have done. So building a team from day one is actually huge. How to set things up correctly as well from day one. Hindsight and is great. The importance of support, because I work with my daughter Emily, and to be perfectly honest, I don't think I'd be able to do this on my own. Before we got into the rent-to-rent, I bought HMOs and bought single lets and a few flips, and I did that with my wife Jane, and once again she's not sat too far away from me, and she'll be very pleased to hear that I couldn't have done that without her. So I think support, if you're in a support community, if you're in a small team, or if it's just your family, the importance of support, I think is huge. And me, I love systems, because I believe that a lot of people get into property and things often spin out of control because they don't have good systems in place, and then they try to leave the really stressful job that they're in because they want to get into property for financial freedom and to get more time as well. But what they do is create this huge job for themselves, and that's because they don't have the right systems in place. So we're really big on systems, and we've got this mantra we say: if it moves, systemize it. So we systemize just everything. So the perfect storm. Why is this a good time to get into rent-to-rent? You guys might remember The Perfect Storm was the name of a film. It was starring this guy, George Clooney. I don't know why I've got a picture of George Clooney in space, because the film is actually set in the sea, I think, and he sank in the end, I think, and drowned the poor thing. So I've got a nicer picture of George Clooney. Anyway, that's the George Clooney we all kind of know, I think. You know. So why is this the perfect storm for rent-to-rent? Well, in England, there's been a shortage of housing, which seems to be going on forever. I don't think it's ever going to end, because we live on an island, and I can't see the island's going to get any bigger. Unemployment uncertainty, again, this just rolls on for years, I think, year after year. The UK has always been one of the best places in the world to come, and there's always been a stream of immigrants, which again adds to the unemployment uncertainty, and the housing shortage feeds all that, I think. I think we can all agree that it's getting ever more hard to get mortgages. My daughter Emily just bought her first house. Like I say, we've been doing rent-to-rent for 2.5 years, and she's saved up a deposit for her house, and she's doing the refurb now. But to get the mortgage, she had to jump through so many hoops to get it. And the last one is that people don't like to stay at home with their mum and dad. When Emily and my son James told us they were going to leave to go and live with their friends and get their own house, we were quite upset, because we thought they'd stay with us for the rest of their lives, to be honest. But so what all this leads to, all these things lead to, it's the perfect time for rent-to-rent, because there's such a huge demand for rooms now. People can't get mortgages. There's more people coming into the country. People are unsure about their jobs, so they don't want to commit to a mortgage. So the demand for rooms, we find, is just growing exponentially. I just pause for a second. We'll have a drink of tea. Got a lovely mug of green tea beside me here. So, why rent-to-rent? Because a lot of people think when you get into HMOs, it's really hard, the extra work because of all the tenants. I've actually got 10 single lets, 2 HMOs that I own, and at the moment we've got 80 rooms, and we get a lot more grief from this single lets than we do the people in the rooms. This is actually the last house I bought down in Somerset. Me and my wife Jane bought this house. Paid 70,000 for it. I don't know if you can detect this even. I've had a stammer ever since I was a small boy. So I know webinars, sometimes the sound's a bit odd, and you might think the sound's been a bit odd this evening, but sometimes I do get stuck on my words, So this, the reason I'm saying that is because I phoned up the agent to put the offer in over the phone, and I was going to make an offer of 72,000 on this house. I tried to say 72, but I got stuck. I said my final offer is 70, and the agent accepted it. So having a stammer on that particular day saved me 2,000, which wasn't a bad thing, I don't think. So pretty standard then on this house. We had to put down a deposit of £21,000 that we saved up ourselves. That included actually £1,500 on the refurb and £1,500 on the legals. So you can see it's making us it's making us £250 a month. So whoops. So is that a good deal or not? I'm not sure really, because last year the boiler blew up and the fence blew down. So that dropped our £250 a month. That dropped it down to £80 a month. So how many £21,000 am I going to have to find to buy properties that are going to produce me £80 a month to enable me to become financially free? And that's going to be quite a lot, I thought. So this is probably about 5 years ago. We bought our first multi-let or HMO, house of multiple occupancy, which is the same thing. We paid the asking price for this, the full asking price. This is up in Bristol. So this time we had to put £60,000 in. So we drew some equity out of our own house and the savings that we had. This was actually a council house, and you can see the silver car. The part of the house in front of that was what I built onto the end of it. So I turned it in from a 3-bed house to a 6-bed house. So we get 6 times £425 income, and it makes us £1,400, which again is great. But of course, I had to find £60,000, to do this. So how many £60,000 am I going to have to find to become financially free? So then Emily brought to my attention a number of years ago, 3 years ago, the rent-to-rent model. So you can see this was the second house that we secured in Bristol. We put 3,850 into it. It's 6-bed. You can see it makes us 6 times 405 on average, and that's making us £960 a month. So I'm just going to flick back a slide. I don't usually flick back. So £60,000 is making us 1,400, or £3,800 is making us 965. And we turned this property around in just over a week. And this was property number 2. We didn't have a clue then, to be honest. The 3,800 consisted of the first month's rent, which was around £1,000. The deposit was around £1,000. I think there was agents' fees for around £400, and the rest of it was the refurb, because we keep the refurbs really small. But the last property we actually secured, now we understand rent. We know exactly what we are doing. We feel in control of it. The last property we secured, we only paid just over £1,000 for that. And that particular property is making us £700 a month. So the return on interest now is becoming huge. And what we're using rent-to-rent for, we're using it as a bit of a springboard. So Emily used the income, my daughter used the income that she made to put down as a deposit on her house, and she's fixing it up. And I used some of the money that we made, plus a bit of joint venture cash, to buy a HMO last year. So as we can continue to grow our own rent-to-rents, we're also trying to buy some more, because then we've got the growth in equity as well. Because obviously in these properties they belong to the owner, so you don't benefit from the growth in equity. So remember I said about building your team from day one. Hindsight is so great, isn't it? So what would I have done, I suppose, if I look back? I've worked with Emily on the rent-to-rents all the time, but I do see guys trying to do this on their own, and to be honest, they struggle a bit, because there is a lot to do. There's a lot to be organised, but as long as you're on it, as long as you've got a list, you do everything on your list. And I come to list later on this evening, I think, the importance of lists. But I found, as we look back, we see that if people work in teams, they seem to be able to work a lot faster. They get better results and grow the business faster, whereas people on their own, they seem to do okay, but it seems to be a bit of a struggle. So I would always advise to find somebody to work with. Your refurb team doesn't have to be particularly big. I don't employ electricians and plumbers because they're too expensive. If there's any big work like that to be done in the rent-to-rent, because the property still belongs to the owner, then he's got to pay for that. So the only people that I employ are like my neighbour who lives a few houses up. He's been retired for a few years, so he comes to work for me. Pay him £60 a day, I think. and a couple of friends of Emily's who come. So your refurb team is only small, sort of handymen, you know. And often these guys have got a van as well, which is handy if you buy things for furniture, you know, to put into the houses. Then you can ask them to deliver it for you as well and store it perhaps. This is actually a huge one for me. This is really big because we got to property number 10 and we looked after the rooms ourselves still. I was still trying to do a part-time job elsewhere. Emily was doing a degree at the time as well, so we were running around in circles sometime. So by the time we got to property number 10, we employed a manager of our own, and we don't kind of actually pay him ourselves, which is, you're going to say, what are you talking about? But I'll, if I got time, I'll tell you how we get this guy to work for us, and it feels as if he's free. Of course, he is getting paid, but it feels as if he's working for us for free. But in hindsight, what would I have done? I'd have got somebody working part-time for us by the time we got to property number 2 or 3. I always think it's good to do the first property or the first 2 yourself, say, so you understand the whole process. Then I'd have brought somebody in part-time on property 1. I'd have paid him just a small amount of cash then, say £100 a month, and £30 or £50 every time he fills a room. And then the more properties you get, the more you'd earn, and then you could increase how much he's earning as well. So I'll tell you about the pay structure of our guy in a minute when we get there. We've got pretty much all our properties, our first 10 came through agents. I would say it's a better situation if you can go direct to the owners for sure, but sometimes they're hard to find. We leafleted, how many leaflets? About 20,000 to get a house. So there's a lot of time and expense designing all that, whereas if you go to the agents, they've got the houses, they're on display. So the most important thing I would say when you're dealing with agents is to build a relationship first. If you go in to the agency and you're asking them for things, you're asking them for their houses, you're trying to get them to reduce the price, you're asking them for things all the time, you can be deemed in the eyes of the agent as being a bit of a pain. So you've got to think, what does the agent want? And if you can offer the agent something first before you ask for something, so I always find you give something to get something back. Building relationships with agents is actually huge, I would say. Some people use a deal sourcer, but we don't. We source them ourselves. Some people, I've heard people paying £1,000 up to £3,000 to get the deal. But for me, rent to rent doesn't really work that way. I like to screw kind of everything down to tight, so you don't really spend a lot because I'm stingy, I guess. I don't know. We have an accountant, which I'd say it's always good to get an accountant on from the very start. And we just use the solicitor to draw the contracts up. And we do an event, which I'll tell you about the event we do. So anybody who comes on our event, they get the contracts themselves. But I always say to people, because you're the person who's going to sign the contract, not me, I always advise people to run it past their own, solicitor first. But that's, it's kind of up to them, I'd say. So the support community. I was saying about the support community. Well, we've got a support community now of, I think it's over 400. Sorry, I must have another drink of tea, Matt. And this has grown with us. When we began doing our events first, the people who used to answer everything and were on the support community, it was Emily and me, and we would spend hours and hours and hours on this. But now we've got 400 people in there. We've got agents in there, solicitors, all sorts of professionals in there. And the great thing is that if anybody's stuck, they just ask, and you get the answer within an hour. And again, I think the power of a support community is huge. And what have we got then? This is sorry, my slides seem to be sticking a bit for some reason. Whoops, my little problem here with the slides. Duncan, if you're still there.
Yeah, hello.
Oh, my slides kind of stuck then, but they've come back on again now. Sorry, it's okay. Thank goodness you're there. See, it's good to have support. See, that's what I'm talking about. So, so we have got our next big event. I'll tell you when that's the 11th of October, and that's what we charge for it, £737. But the value we give on our events is just huge, and you'll see why it's a bit more expensive than others. So our support community is actually a Facebook group because everybody's on Facebook, and you can see we've got over 400 members there. We've also got a file section there where we add all contracts and everything. So if there's any alterations to them, we're able to update them easily. So everything we got, cutting edge and kind of up to date. So this is not like an advert, because I was talking to Duncan this afternoon. He said it's not kind of adverts, all this, and I said no, this is about the power of rent to rent, because a lot of people have dismissed it, to be honest. And when it came on the scenes first, really, it came to the fore 2 years ago, it was getting so much flack, but it's been around for 20 years or more. But I was always arguing with everybody. Everybody was saying it's against the law and it's this and this and this, but it's not at all. It's completely legal above board. So I thought I'd just put a few of these up. This is a guy who's going to come to an event that we're doing on the 13th of September. By then he will have secured his third house, and having 3 houses rent to rent is going to be enough to replace his income. So he didn't want me to put his name up until then. He'll probably be all over Facebook then. This is the guy who did our course 2 years ago, and he's just secured his first deal. And you can find this guy on Facebook. So he does exist. He's real. So his first deal, rent to rent, is making 1950. I just did these very fast. Dan, you can see Danny. He was going to do 4 deals by the end of the year. Now his goal is 10. And Danny's a really smart guy. The way that he got the agent on board, because the agent was a bit a bit flash. So Danny put on his best suit and those shoes that the agents wear that are quite pointed, and he hired a car. He got this really sort of flash car. Then he booked with the agent to view some properties for sort of an afternoon. I think they viewed about 8, I think. And that's the big tip, because if you're going to view a property with an agent, and the big thing is to build a relationship, if you just book the one property, then you spend half an hour with the agent and he's gone. So the best thing is to book an afternoon of viewings. Even if you think the properties aren't really the right properties, you can still spend all that time sat in the car with the agent and going to the next house. And that's when you build relationships, to get to know them. So Danny offered the agent a lift. They spent the afternoon in his flash car, and the agent was hooked. And so that's why Danny's goal now is 10. This is another guy, Charlie, lovely guy. He's a family guy, and I think he wants to. He's got a job that's eating up all his hours, and he wants to get into rent to rent, spend a bit more time with his family. He says he's feeling pretty awesome at the moment. David Farrar, David's a guy. All these guys are on Facebook, so you're able to find them. He struggled for a long time to get his first deal, a long time, but then he sent me this. This was last month, saying his first deal is signed and sealed. Kelly Grace. Kelly's a young mum with 2 kids, and she struggled again for a long time to find the agent. She was scared of the agent, to be honest. In the end, she built up her nerve to go in to talk to an agent, discovered that the agent was a friend of her mum's, and now she's going to do a joint venture with the agent. I think that's pretty awesome, So this is like a snapshot, really, of the power of rent to rent. So if any of you guys out there are dismissing it still, then please don't, because it is it's real. It's very real. This is a lady, Katrina. She just got to 10. She's up in New York. She's just opened up an agency, and she said she wanted to get to 10 to give her the income to allow her then to pursue the things that she actually wanted to do. Because me and Emily, when we got to 10, we stopped for a while and pursued some other things. So and we did that within 6 months. Katrina did it within a year, I think. She came on our training twice, actually. Papa's got a big job. He's working all over the place, goes to London a lot. He's just started a family as well, so he's just about doing deal number 3, and his plan is as well to not have to work in the big job, to be able to spend a lot more time with his family. Ian's doing it in Kings somewhere, down in Kent. What's that place? Kings, Royal Tunbridge Wells. That's it, yeah. Yeah, I was almost there. So he's actually opened up an agency as well. He was doing rent to rent before he met us, but he's opened up his own agency. These 2 young ladies, they were just about to get their job and move into rent to rent full time. Just got to property number 10, both of them. Latoya, here she is with me. She came over from New Zealand about a year and a half ago. She's doing it down in Cornwall, which is quite hard to do there, I think. And she just got to property number 10, and she just had a bit of a reset, really, because she wants to turn it into a real business. So she stopped for a while to close things down to focus on turning it into real business. And Sue's, this is Sue. She's an upcoming star. She's had a tough time actually, and I think she's on deal number 3 now. So a year's time, it's going to be interesting to see where she is as well. Actually, so a little snapshot of the guys there, and yeah, these are the events we do. See some of the people we get there. We try to keep the groups not too big. Lots of guys, we encourage people to meet up and form their own kind of joint ventures within the group. Keep the energy high. You can see everybody having a good time. Business in a box, and we give everybody everything they need. So yeah, that's just a little bit of a snapshot about what we do. Also part of the reunion thing is that we get people to meet up again afterwards, and we've got a reunion coming up in a nice spa hotel. So we're really looking forward to that in a few weeks. We've got it's about 70 or 80 people going to come along to that, and we kind of re-energize everybody, just tell everybody what's new and cutting edge again. So the reason I'm talking about all this, I think, is the support, because I did like a lot of events before myself. I paid a lot of cash, and when I walked out of the door, I was on my own. And it's only afterwards that I find, if you do a training event, then afterwards you think of all the new things you want to ask, but there's no support. You're on your own, you're stuffed. And I think that's one thing about the property industry that sucks. So I think it should become mandatory that if anybody is on any sort of course where they pay a lot of cash, that there should be support. That, you know, and it's easy to do, to be honest. So right, cracking on. That's enough about support. A lot of guys, when they set their companies up doing the rent to rent, they say, how do I set myself up, a sole trader, or do I set up as a limited company? And of course, I've got to say at this point that I'm not offering any financial advice at all. This is just how we set things up. We decided to try and set things up correctly from the start. So I paid my accountant, I think, £100, and he set us up as a limited company. And I just think it's better to structure things correctly from the start. And also, we were going in to talk to the agents, and the agents were actually asking us this. They wanted to see our books to know that we're actually a real entity. Some guys decided not to do this, and then they went into the agents. The agents asked to see their books, everything. Then you had to go back to the start to reset. And then you've blown some of your credit then with the agents. So I was saying it's better to set things up correctly from the start, really. You would think in this day and age that everybody's got online banking for sure. But we find a lot of people haven't. So you've got, it's imperative that you use online banking with this to pay all your bills, you know, to get the money paid into your bank as well. Counting system, I'm going to admit to something here, but perhaps I shouldn't. We use Excel spreadsheet sheets because we find our business is still quite small. It's a simple system that works well for us. So we did think about you know, starting to upgrade to bigger systems, but for now, you know, it seems to work well, so we just decided to keep things as they are. Websites. Who hasn't got a website? If you haven't got a website in this day and age, and you're trying to run a business, to be honest, I think you don't exist. There's a little story I tell people sometimes about when my family came to my house and we were off out something to eat. So my little nephew was there, and I asked him to go into the other room to get the phone book, and he didn't understand what I was talking about. I said, you know, the phone book, and he said, no, I don't know. I said, it's a book, and it's got numbers in. And as I began to say the words, to be honest, it sounded odd. And before I'd returned from the room where I got the phone book myself, he'd found the phone number of the pub on his phone. So really, everything these days is online. Your website's got to be good. It's got to be functional, but you've got to have one. Business cards. So if you haven't got a picture of yourself on your business card, I think you might as well tear them up and put them in the bin. I've collected so many business cards over the year. I put them in the drawer beside my desk, and I get them out, and if there's not a picture of the person on the card, I just don't have a clue who that person is. So I would say you need to get a professional photographer, and you need to have your photograph on your card. In our events, we actually get a professional photographer to come along, and she takes shots of people for £35 a head. So I got somebody off here to do some work for me. He actually lives in the Philippines, I think, and he made me a film, and I put the film onto my site, and he made it for me for £3.60. It's just so cheap. Another website we use a lot is People Per Hour, so that's peopleperhour.com, and I use this guy. It's a guy in India. He built the website for us, and I think I paid him about £150, and our website is slick. So I got the whole thing done so cheap. You know, I talked about the websites, Fiverr.com. There's a few others as well, like Elance is one. So we get all those guys to do the design work for us as well, because you know this stuff's out there, and you can get this done so cheap. I think the more stuff you can outsource, the faster you'll be able to drive your business on, and the more time as well you'll be able to spend on the beach as well, instead of trying to do all this work yourself. Deposit schemes, or the TWH, stands for the Warranty Hub. So I don't know if you guys, if you're into property, you know there's been a lot of fuss over deposits this past few years. These days, when you secure a deposit, you've got to do it within 30 days, whereas in the old days, I think about 5 years ago or more, you had to secure them within 14 days. Well, just before that new rule came in place, I actually secured a deposit within 15 days. I dropped the ball. I'd kind of a lot of stuff happening in my personal life, and I forgot to secure the deposit. That guy then turned into a bit of a nightmare. He was in a single let. He found out that I didn't secure the deposit in time, and he was trying to sue me then for 3 times the deposit, which was £1,000. And I'd been an exemplary landlord, and he'd been a complete what's a good word to use for this, really, scumbag, I suppose you'd say. You know, so I think the rules for deposits are so kind of, you know, stacked against the innocent landlord that we look for some alternatives. So we found an insurance scheme. It's called the Warranty Hub. It used to be called Deposit Approved, but they just changed it to the Warranty Hub. So now, when we want to get tenants to rent our rooms, if they're struggling a bit, sometimes people find it hard to find the cash for the first month's rent, the deposit, and the admin fees and everything, we sometimes offer them insurance instead. So instead of them paying £400, they pay £70 insurance, which they pay themselves, where it comes out of the admin fee. That's one way to use the Warranty Hub. And the other way is that when we go to secure our rent-to-rent properties, if the landlord's asking for a deposit off us, and that can be anywhere between £1,000 and £2,000, we offer him to do insurance instead. So instead of us putting £1,000 to £2,000 in deposit schemes where it's got to stay, you know, for a long time, we can just pay. I think the last one was about £200. So that frees up a lot of cash for us as well. So it's like a new thing, really. You know, the way forward. When you're securing the properties as well, you've got to if you can't prove to the agents that you can afford it, because often the agents will say that you've got to earn anywhere between 30 and 42 times the rent. So say the rent is £1,000 a month, they expect you to be earning between £30,000 and £42,000 a year. Well, a lot of people who get into rent to rent, they're getting into rent to rent because they don't earn very much, so they struggle with that. So the way some people have been getting around that is to get a guarantor, somebody who's not in the industry perhaps, so they'll stand as guarantor for them, and they'll get a percentage of the income as well. So that's one way. The other way, I've been talking to the owner of the Warranty Hub. He's a great guy called Rob. So he's setting up product as well now that's going to insure us for when we go to the agent. So we're trying to get all the things organised, so we've got systems in place, you know, all over the place to make things work and to make it easy, because that's what it's all about, I think. Systematizing, as I've already said, I think we heard that bit when I said I'm big on building systems for everything. Systems, I found this somewhere, I thought it's pretty cool. System saves you stress, time, energy, and money, and I think that's very true. And I think a lot of people don't do. I've seen, which is imperative that you do, is teach your team these systems as well. because if you're pulling one way trying to do something and you've not trained you to team up, even if it's your handyman or the refurb guy, if they're not working to the same systems as you, then it just puts a lot of strain onto everything. So working out the systems for yourself and making sure all the people you've got working around you in your team understand those systems as well. And getting all those systems in place, I put this in there, where would you be in 5 years' time? We've been doing the rent-to-rent for 2.5 years, and I really didn't think when we got into rent-to-rent first that I'd be in the position I'm in after just 2.5 years. It's come as a shock to me, to be honest. But all that has to do with really is having belief in yourself, knowing that the system you're using is good and it works. Rent-to-rent is ethical. You know, we help the owners of the properties. We help the tenants who are in the properties. We make sure all our properties are safe and clean and legal. And we began to grow the business even more. So we got to 60 rooms and we stopped. We systematized everything to make sure everything was under control. Then we grew it to 80 rooms and then we stopped again to make sure everything's under control, to make sure that things just don't go spinning out of orbit. So I asked my daughter the question this week, where do we see ourselves in 5 years' time? Because I think it's interesting in property how people make their plans for 6 months or 12 months, but property is really a long-term thing. You've got to plan for maybe 3 years and 5 years and beyond that, and we're just getting our plans in place for year 5 actually. So I'm going to tell you some of the systems that we use to great effect. List. I'm a big person for lists. So what? First of all, it was me and Emily. Then it's all the other people in our group. We've asked people to send us a list of everything they did to do, from when they search for the properties. First of all, how do they search for those properties? What do they do to do? And we've created a list of that. Then when they get the property, when they go around to view it, when they go around to meet the agent, when they go around to view the property, what do they look for in the house? When they greet the tenants at the house, how do they conduct the interviews? So we've got a list of absolutely everything. And what we say to people is we put these into our files on support group. We tell people to print these off and download them, then cut them out and laminate them. Then put them into their handbags or their man bags, say. So when they go around to the properties, if they're signing a tenant in and they forget a few things, they'll just go through my bag, pull out my list. Oh yes, I've got to do this, this, and this. And the power of that, even is such a simple thing, but it's awesome, and everybody just loves it. And we've got bullet points for absolutely everything. Now I know I might have said that we refurb our properties so cheaply. The lowest refurb we've done has cost us £450. That's all we've paid. Our most expensive has been £2,000. And when I tell people that, they think I'm talking nonsense, but I can assure you it's true. We buy a lot of our stuff through eBay, but we don't actually buy it on eBay, if you know what I mean. We use eBay as a shop window to find the thing, and then we buy it through another site. There's a site called Gixen. It's Gixen.com. Gixen's a sniper site, because I don't know if you guys all use eBay. You'll find if you go on there, the best way to bid on eBay to try to get the bargains is to wait for the clock to tick down. So you put a bid on when it clicks down to 7, then it'll ask you to confirm by the time it gets to say 3, and then you confirm, and then your bid shows. Then there's no time for the next person to get in behind you because your bid's up there. Well, one of the last things I bought was 2 3-seater leather sofas, and I paid £23 for them. I bought them for £11.50 each, and they were as good as new. And that's because of the system that we use. 42-inch TVs, we buy them anywhere between £41 and about £60. And the bargains you get on eBay are just astounding, to be honest. So we bid for the things on Gixen, we find them on eBay, we bid for them on Gixen, and then you might think, well, that's okay, but unless you've got a van, you can't go around to collect these things. Well, there's another site that's called Anyvan, ANYVAN. I think that's not sure if that's .com or .co.uk, and they're actually linked to eBay. So then you send the link, the thing you bought off eBay, to Anyvan. They bid to get your job, and when you find the guy you like, then you're able to work with him. So I've got my mate Wayne now, I found. So So what we do, I've kind of outsourced this to my managers as well, so I don't actually do a lot of this myself. What he does, he finds the furniture and the items that we need on eBay. He uses Gigson.com to buy them. Then he'll phone up Wayne, tell Wayne what he's got to go and collect. Wayne collects it, puts it into his dry store. Then we get houses, we do the refurb. Then we phone up Wayne, tell him to bring the stuff and put it into the house. So Wayne actually brings it in his van, puts it in the bedrooms or the chest of drawers and the things we buy. So we've not actually had to put our hands on things at all. And we buy things using the system just so cheap, we save a fortune. It might seem like it's a bit of time to set these things up, but of course they are at the start. But now we've got it down, so it's really easy. You know, my property manager Will knows how much he's got to spend, and he knows exactly what he's got to look for. And we just buy stuff. Each room's got a chest of drawers, bedside table, a wardrobe, and a bed. And then we put the usual stuff, flat screen TV, sofas, you know, the usual kind of stuff. And we save a fortune on that. I did tell you about how we employ our property manager, Will, and for us he's like free almost. We feel we were going to be ever so nice to people, and we kept our admin fees for the rooms really small. So we used to charge people £50 each because we wanted to be nice. And then I realised that we were just being stupid, to be honest. So we upped our admin fees to £150 every time somebody moves into the room, and nobody complains about it at all because it's pretty standard. So then when we found Will, this guy to come to work for us, we paid Will a flat wage of £500 a month, and he did about 15 hours a week to start with. Then every time he filled a room, we paid him £30. So that made him keen to keep the rooms full. But we've just upped that now to £50 a room, and he's doing a few extra hours for us, so we pay him a bit more. But pretty much everything he earns comes out of the admin fees, because we turn over about 5 rooms a month, I think, now. So 5 lots of 150, what's that? £750, and that's pretty much all we need to pay Will. So it's like we've got him to work for us for free. So another brilliant system. I'm sure a lot of you guys know about the master key system. So all these rooms we've got, we could have 80 locks for the bedrooms, 80 keys for the front doors, the back doors, the inner doors, the porches, the bike stores, the sheds. You could have loads of keys. All I've got, all he's got now, Will, is one key. The one key just opens everything. It's a master key system, and I haven't got time to talk about that particularly. But if you go to your local locksmith and ask them if they can set up a master key system for you, then they will. It just makes things so much easier. We've got a great way how there was a lady on our course, on our event, Tracy, and she works for her friend Catherine. They got a price of a house reduced. It was advertised at £1,500 a month, and they got it down to £750. So they got it reduced by 50%. We'll often get £250 to £350 off the advertised rent. And I'll very quickly tell you how we do that, because I know we're getting a bit behind on to time. Our system on that is 5 things. Number 1 is we don't pay deposits anymore. We only used to pay deposits because we thought you had to. As soon as we realised that you don't have to pay deposits, then we stopped. We delay the first month's rent for as long as we can. So our thinking on that is, if you say to the owner of the property, this property isn't set to rent yet and it needs a bit of a repaint, or you've got to replace a few things in-house, the bathroom perhaps, or something, So we ask the landlord to delay the first month's rent for a month, and sometimes they say they'll delay it for 3 weeks, and then we get in there and do the refurb really fast. We get the refurb completed in, say, a week. Then we move our tenants into the property, we get the rent off them, and we use their cash to pay the first month's rent. So far, we haven't paid a deposit, and we haven't paid the first month's rent. I've told you about how we do the refurbs so cheap. So we hardly pay anything for the refurbs at all, and we've got a great system as well to get the landlord to pay for everything. The last property we did, we secured it for £1,000, and the landlord put in nearly £3,000 on the refurb, and we've got a great little system for that as well. And the 5th thing is, it's like an obvious thing and an easy thing, which all these things often are, is I always tell people you've got to get your ducks in a row. It's no good when you start a project if you're not organised. Well, when we get the keys of the property, I drive to the property with a few guys to go and do some work. I'll drop them off there on the way, so they start to clean everything up on the outside. Then I'll come back to the property. I'll give everybody a list so everybody knows what they've got to do. I'll have already got the materials that we need the day before, so that's already in my van or my friend's van. And we're just completely organised. We've got all our ducks in a row. Everybody knows what they've got to do, and they get on with it. And that is how we, how we could secure a property for £1,000. We call it the MLCS 5-step system, and we use that just every time. Plus, a lot of the guys on our events do as well, actually. So, a simple system that works really well. So, just tell you about what we're doing again. We've got our next event. We've done about 28 events, I think, now, and our next one's coming up. It's going to be in Bristol, in a place called the Engineer's House, a really nice venue. The full price we charge for our event is $737. We've got an early bird price you'll find on the website there for £617, and you'll get everything you need. Duncan told me it's got to be a special price this evening, so we never really drop it this low anymore, but we can drop it another £50 off that, say to $567. Including VAT on that as well. The reason our course is a bit more expensive than other ones is that most of the other rent courses you could go on, you've got to buy the contracts on top, and they're anywhere between 300 and 500 extra, and they don't have the support. And the value of the support, I think, is absolutely huge. It's everything. But of course, there is one more thing that you must do to make all this work. And that is, you've got to take action, because I don't know if you guys were the same as me. Some of the training events I did in the early days, I'd done a lease option course, and instead of self-development, it very quickly became shelf-development. And as I turn and look behind me, I can see the manual up on the shelf even now, untouched. Because unless you take action, and you've got to free up some time, I think, in your life. A lot of people have got very full lives, and they'll go on a training course because they want to improve their life to get some extra income. But unless you free up a big watch of time to be able to take the action to do those things, it's pointless. So we have got this great little system, of course, with that as well, to help you guys to free up time, which we talk about on our event. So I know we've gone over a few minutes over time. I've tried to speed up a little bit. We're trying to end by 9 o'clock. So these are the things you do get when you come on to our event. And this is the special price we do for Duncan, and there's the link there if anybody would like to join us. So, Duncan, I'm sure you've got some good questions in the box.
You say that it costs only about £1,000 to go rent to rent, but can you just reiterate exactly where that £1,000 goes, and who exactly, does that include like doors and windows and stuff like that, or what exactly is included in that £1,000, and how can you do it for such a small amount?
Yeah, I don't have the list in front of me of how we spent the £1,000 on that particular deal, but as I recall, I think there was an agent involved, so we had to pay the agent fee of £400 on that one. Everything else was stuff like miscellaneous things in the house, just kind of odds and ends. We had to buy the knives and forks, pots and pans and things. TV set, as I recall, something for about £60 in that one. Paint. Somebody cleared the garden for us on that one for sort of a morning for 30 quid. People in the house doing some paint work. I think the painting was £250 to go around to splash and paint, but it kind of added up to that particular property. The last one we done was just 1,015. What we actually do, the reason we don't spend huge amounts of stuff on things like fire doors, fire alarms, which you've got to have the fire doors, you've got to have the correct thumb turns on the doors, fire extinguishers. Oh, yeah, Jane just passed me the list now. I've actually got the list here now. The agent's fees were £400. We put a toilet in there. Sorry?
You have a glamorous assistant.
Yeah, she's right here beside me. I've got the agent's fees £400, a toilet and a basin off eBay, which my plumber went round to collect, so I didn't have to put my hands on that. That was 50 quid. 2 leather sofas, the ones I talked about, were in this property, £23, and these were immaculate. These were actually in my house for a bit. 42-inch flat screen TV, £62. Artwork, £64. Paint was £42. Labour on this property was £276. Miscellaneous, £98, and that added up to exactly 1,015. So thank you, Jane. So I didn't have to buy fire doors. I didn't have to put smoke alarms in because they were already in. The fire doors are already in. I bought a fire extinguisher that was in miscellaneous there. Already had the correct thumb turns on the doors, because the way we do that is the properties we look for are ex-student properties. We find in this age, lots of the unis and government, in fact, they decided that because the students keep coming each year and paying all this cash over to private landlords, it's better if they could build dedicated student blocks and keep all that cash on site. And in Bristol, plus a lot of the unis all over England, they started to build these blocks. So when the students come along to view, they view these old Victorian houses that maybe a bit drafty, and a lot of the landlords are a bit kind of out of touch, so they're a bit dated. So they'd much prefer to move into new blocks. That's meant a lot of these houses they're empty, and the landlords have been able to fill these houses easily are struggling, and a lot of them are a bit clueless. So we come along to save them. In fact, they've already got the fire doors in them, they've already got the alarms. It needs a bit of repair work on them. Sometimes you've got to replace some of the locks on the doors to make sure they've got the thumb turns. I've also got to put the fireproof blankets in. But the reason we don't have to spend very much is because we look for student houses, is the answer. Yeah, so we keep our refurbs down like really small.
Fantastic, thank you. That was a very detailed and great answer. Thanks for that. Dave asks, where exactly do you find your end-to-end deals?
Through agents. We found of the first 10 we've got, I think they're all through agents, all of them. I'd say half of those were where the owner used the agent to find us, then the agent was gone. So we dealt, from that day, we dealt directly with the owner, and that's always the better sort of option, I would say. But the other 5, the agents are still there, which is a bit of a pain sometimes if you've got to ask the agent to fix something in the house, and the agent's got to ask the owner, then you've got to wait for the owner to reply to the agent, and then the agent comes back to you, so it's a bit of a pain. But it's still okay to have the agent in the deal, because they work for the owner, and so they get a percentage of the owner's rent. So if the agent's in the deal, we don't have to pay the agent at all, the owner does. So initially we got our deals through agents, but I'd say that the last 2 or 3 we got direct to owner, and that's through leafleting, going to networking events, that kind of thing, just speaking to everybody. Apply the 3-foot rule. Have you heard of that before, Duncan? The 3-foot rule?
I haven't, no.
That means to tell everybody within 3 foot. Tell just everybody, the postman, the people down the shop, your mum, your dad, your brother, your sister. Tell everybody, and they tell people, and they tell people, and it's surprising things you get out of that. You talk to friends of friends, and they bring you to deals. So we've actually got a house that way. It was I think it's a friend of one of Emily's friends' dads. So tell everybody, apply the 3-foot rule.
Sing it from the rooftops.
Yeah.
That was great, because actually what you mentioned there actually kind of answered one of the other questions which came in, because somebody was saying, like, how exactly Iban said, hi Francis, Duncan, great webinar. My question is, how do you work with letting agents? What's in it for them? And you touched on it then, because so thanks for that.
2 schools of thought on this as well, because the agent still gets paid from the owner, they still get a percentage of them, but because you want to work with the agent and you want to sign the property up for 3 years or plus, it could be 3, 5, or some people. I work with a guy and he signed a property up for 10 years, and to me that is a long time. So we sign ours up for 3 years. But if you're signing a property up for 3 years, then the agent's not going to get the churn. It's called, because with the students would only stay for a year. So every year the agent would get all those extra fees of the students. They'd to get paid for the interim inspections and all this. But if you sign a property up for 3 years, of course all that stops. So sometimes the agents aren't so keen to sign up with you for 3 years. So what you might have to do sometimes is to offer the agent an incentive yourself. So even though the owner is paying the agent a percentage of the rent, it could be anything between 10 or 15%, say, you might also offer the agent a percentage of your income, and that could be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% yourself, and that could be to keep the agent sweet. So it really does depend on the deal, and I wouldn't kind of offer that unless the agent hints that all the fees they're going to start to lose. But you've got to keep the agent sweet, and you've got to keep the agent wanting to work with you and bring deals to you. So that's what's in it for the agent. Plus,
Right.
one more thing I'll say is that you're doing the work on their behalf, to be honest. So it's like you work for the agent for free, because when the agent used to work for the owner, they had to go to the property, deal with all the students, deal with all the mess, deal with all that crap, So you're going to take care of all of that, and the agent still gets paid. So you're actually doing the agent's job for them for free. So there's quite a lot in it, for them to work with you, I would say.
Yeah, you're taking away their headaches. So actually, yes.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. John said, how do the owners take to you rearranging their properties, which I assume on some means changing walls, electrics? I assume you have to undo it when the agreed term is over.
The short answer to that is we don't, because we don't actually put up any stud walls at all. To get the houses we secured at the start, we secured 10. I must have viewed over the course of 3 months. I viewed about 50, I suppose. It was just endless. Put the hours in, because again, I think it probably doesn't belong to us. So why am I going to spend all that time putting up stud walls, and altering things? The biggest refurb I've done is I put a toilet underneath the stairs and a sink. And the stud walls were already there. There was already a door. All we had to do is put in a small toilet and a sink, and I think it was on a pump as well. Those pumps where you put in the small pipe, and the small pipe had to go underneath the floor. So I did that in fact twice, but I've never put up any stud walls. I've never changed the electrics around. To be honest, I really think, because these properties with rent to rent, the properties don't belong to you, so you've got to keep the refurbs small. But however, though, there's one guy in our group whose name was today on the slides, Jason McCarthy. He'd done a refurb for somebody and he spent £16,000. That kind of scares me a bit. But Jason is going to be earning, or he is earning, £2,000 a month off that net. So by the time he gets to month 8, he's earned it back. And he signed the property up for 5 years. So he did do a lot of work in the property, but he'd done that with the owner's consent. I would say never do anything in the property without the owner's consent. And as you say, Duncan, it could be that when you come to the end of the contract, you can hand the property back. And so anything you've done to the property, you make good when you hand it back. But you've got to do it with the owner's consent. It's got to be above board.
I'm just going to quickly just reiterate a little bit of what you said earlier, because you said obviously the main thing is about you get a lot of your deals from the agents working with them, but then you mentioned a couple of things about direct to vendor, and then apart from like your 3-foot rule, Ben asks, do you have any other, is it simply like word of mouth, or do you use like Rightmove or knock on the door or Gumtree or advertising or leafleting? Do you have any other direct to vendor tactics, or is it simply like being known for being
no at all, because we did leafleting. We started to do that. I think like I said, I think we dropped about 20,000 now. So we dropped them in batches of 3,000, and we keep our areas quite small. We dropped 20,000, and we've got, I think, 2 deals out of that now. To be honest, I think it is. So one deal was direct to owner, and that's a good deal when the person decides to move out of a house in about 2 months' time. Then we're going to get that deal. And the other one was we found an agent actually. So we found an online agency. I find the corporate agents are really hard to work with, so it's better if you can find smaller ones. And this one was actually an internet one, so it's a guy who's working pretty much from home, just a team of three of them. So we went round to meet him and explain the whole thing to him, and he can see the value in it for him as well, because as we said, we do the work on behalf of the agents, kind of in a way. So we do leafleting, word of mouth. We stand up and talk at networking events. If anybody's got a house, they're struggling to let. We did think about optimizing the site for a while, spending a bit of cash on that, because decided, we didn't think it'd be cash well spent. A good little thing, we're looking Gumtree. Actually, if you look on the website Gumtree, some owners advertise their rooms in there, and for some reason, the type of people who advertise on there are always kind of a bit kind of old school. And we've contacted a few of those. Not got a deal yet, but we found a few on there. But that's a tip, actually, I would say. But just everything. You try everything, to be honest. Like, the postman's a good one. If you speak to him, offer him £300 if he can find you a deal, because he's just going everywhere. He's from house to house all over the place. I've got a friend called Clive. He's in our group. He's like the skip man, he's called. So he drives around. If he sees a skip outside a house where people are doing some work, he'll stop and go and speak to the builders. And he said he's done that just loads of times. And he's got two deals out of that, which I thought was quite interesting. Carpet fitters is another one, because these are guys who go from house to house to house to house. So if you know someone, if you go into a shop, if you say to the guys in the shop, if you find me a deal, I'm prepared to pay you £300, or how much are you prepared to pay? If it's a deal that's going to make you £1,000 a month, how much would you be prepared to pay for that? 1,000, I think. So if you go to these people, say, find me a deal, and I'm prepared to pay you, get these guys to work for you for free. Well, not for free, but to work for you.
Fantastic. That's I think interesting how you don't, with a lot of these deals, like, there doesn't need to be a winner and a loser. Like, you can structure things win-win-win. Like, everyone's happy with what they're getting out of it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I think there's space in it for everybody for sure. The tenants are happy. I'm happy. The owners are happy. The agents are. So just great for everybody. Yeah.
Absolutely. Odette asks, she goes, sorry, I missed the bit earlier when you were discussing limited company or sole trader. Which one did you say was best?
Well, I'm not offering financial advice, of course, I've got to say that, but when we set things up for ourselves, we decided to set ourselves up as a limited company. I think there's a website you can use. I think it's Duport, that's Duport, and they kind of set everything up for you, that there's a fee. But we decided to ask our accountant to do it for us, and he charged us £100 just to make sure everything was done right. And the reason we set a company up is because we found when we went to the agencies, they expected it. So and also, if you set things up right from the start, then as you grow, the structure is there. And if you ever decide to sell, then you've got a whole kind of entity to sell it. So it's just set things up right from the start, really.
Fantastic. Kat asks, when you take on a property from a landlord or agent, do you use an AST or a managing contract in place?
Yeah, you can never, ever use an AST. To use an AST, you've got to live in the house yourself. We don't advise that. So when you come into our events, we give all the contracts out, and we give out a management contract that's cost us maybe in excess of 2,000, I suppose, up to date. That's one we prefer to use if we can, and if we're going direct to the owners, we do. But then we find if you're going to work with the agents, they think if you're offering them a management contract, in some way it kind of undermines them. So because when you go to the agents, they're the experts, and you step on eggshells a bit. You can't tell them the contract to use. You've got to ask them. And if you get offered an AST, you shouldn't just say to them, "Oh no, that's totally the wrong thing to do." You've got to go, "Yeah, that's very interesting. We've got these other contracts as well. If you want to think about these, because you've got to step on eggshells for sure." So number one choice is a management contract. Number two choice, and number three really, is either a commercial lease. That we've never actually used those yet, but a lot of the guys in the group do. But they're more of a complex contract to use, and some of the agents are scared of them. So the last one we use sometimes is a corporate let, which is it's a kind of like an AST in a way, I suppose. It's all down to the name. This is a contract that's used by a company called Northwood, and they've been doing rent to rent for 20 years. So this contract's very similar to theirs. All of our contracts we ran past our solicitors a few times. I actually think the correct contract for rent to rent's not actually out there, because each of these has got their flaws. But we're trying to use the best contracts that we can that are available at the moment. And I'm going to be working with my solicitor next month actually to create a new one that hopefully is going to cover everything. Because there's always issues sometimes with lenders. So that's why we use a management contract to get over that. and there's kind of issues with insurance and kind of other things. So we're trying to develop the perfect contract. 'Cause I think the perfect contract isn't actually out there yet. The contract we use for the people who move into our rooms, we use an AST with them, a standard AST. So some people like to use a license, but in the eyes of the law, a license is the same as an AST. So we use an AST. It's okay and it works.
Dave was saying about how he tries pitching rent to rent to agents, and he actually ending up getting nowhere. And so they often shut him down, saying it's not legal. What would you suggest to Dave?
It's legal for sure. There's a firm called Northwood, and they've been doing it how many years? 22, I think now. They've got branches all over England. They've got about 70. So these guys, I can assure you, it's legal for sure. Probably it could be the agent you're speaking to, because a lot of the corporate ones have got a policy where they just won't do rent to rent. I'm actually working with an agent in Reading. He's got, how many branches? I think he's got 7 or 8, and he's just expanding into London. And rent to rent, he loves it. We've actually got agents in our group. I think we've got 4 now. So I would say it's a numbers game. If these people don't understand rent to rent or don't want to work with you, just move on. Of the agents I spoke to, we spoke to initially maybe 10, I would say. 5 of those agreed to work with us. They were okay with it. 3 of those agents brought us deals. One of those agents has brought us almost all of our deals. So all you really need to do is find one person who understands you, one person that you're able to get on with, and don't be despondent. I would say just keep on. But at the same time, I would try to pursue deals direct to owners as well, because if you can do the 2 things hand in hand, then I would say who needs the agents? But so some agents will understand you, and some will just be old school. And the great thing is, when you start to find your deals, and you go back to the agents and say, well, I'm working with this agent, I'm working with that agent, I'm working with this agent, so why won't you work with me? Because it's better for them as well. It's great for everybody. But is it legal? Absolutely, 100%. Because all you're doing really is positioning yourself as an agent yourself. And most of the reason why some of these agents are respond the way they do is because they're scared, because they've been doing this for so long, and they're only earning 10 to 15%, and we're earning sometimes at warranted deals 50%. So the poor agent's been working away all this time, and then you come along, the new kid, and you're doing better than him almost immediately. And some of them get a bit upset about that. But I would say the short answer is just it's numbers. So just keep on and keep on. You only lose if you quit, as they say. So.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's a numbers game. It's quite interesting actually. Often you hear about these people's successes, but actually the failures is actually just as interesting. And it's a numbers game. If you talk to one agent, or you talk to 2 or 3 agents, and you get shut down and you lose confidence, then you stop there, then actually it's a pure numbers game. There's a quite good book. Have you read the book Go for No? Yeah,
amazing book. Love that book.
Yeah, it's fantastic. If you guys haven't checked it out, I can't remember who the author is, but Spence, I'm not sure, but Google Go for No. It's a good book, and it turns that whole idea of failure on its head. And actually, if your goal is not to try and get the successes, but just to actually get as many no's as possible,
then
the yeses, you can chuck what you know and everything which you think you understand, and throw it on its head. And it's actually it's an interesting way to look at it, and it kind of changes the way you look at failure. So
it actually helped us immensely when we got into it first. I had that book, so I read that book, and what we decided to do was call agents out of the area, because I didn't want to burn the bridges with the agents in my area. So I called the agents out of the area first, and my plan was them. I think we had to collect 10 each, I think, Emily and me. And I only got to about 4, and his agent, I explained I was doing this thing called rent to rent, and would I be able to come around to view? And agent number 4 or number 5 said yes. I went, oh right, but the problem was that I think he was in Scotland, so I said, yeah, I'll call you back then, okay? But as soon as you get a few people saying yes, then you're growing confidence. We do use scripts as well when we call the agents. I personally think it's better to call the agents or to call them first on the phone before you go and speak to them. And the reason for that is if you walk into an agency and they're not sure about you or the thing you're talking about, so the agent comes and stands in the middle of the floor to talk to you. He's having a conversation with you about this thing called rent to rent. All the other agents in the room can hear him. He's not sure about it, so is he going to say yes? Of course not. So he's going to say no. So we found it's better to have the initial conversation over the phone. And we've got a very precise script that I would say now works 100% of the time. So we have the initial conversation. We tell them what we want to do, but it's the way you say things, the way you phrase it, and then we get them out of the office to talk to them, and that's when you build the relationships, and then the whole thing begins to roll then. Yeah. So go for no. Yeah.
go for no. Brilliant. Let's have a look. What we got? We got so many good questions that come in. I'm just thinking what would be a good one to go for next. What Sam goes? What's the best type of property to look for? I mean, I'm sure like best is subjective, but what would you say personally for you? What kind of property do you keep an eye out for?
I love Victorian properties, and it's a bit of an obvious one, I suppose, because if you're living in a house shed, there's going to be all these people in the house. Maybe our houses have got some of them only got 4 people in them. They're 3 beds that we managed to rent out 4 rooms, and they're okay. I prefer the ones with 5 beds because they seem to work well. 5 and 6 beds we've got. We did have an 8 bed for a while, but it was a bit too full, to be honest. So we go for Victorian houses, and the obvious reason for that is because they're so big. You go into a Victorian house, the hallway's big, the rooms are big, the ceiling's big, everything's big. So mostly we go for those, and they must have double glazing as well, because otherwise those big old Victorian properties are quite drafty. So we did have a look at a few, and the properties we thought were great, they're a bit too cold. The properties we've got that are 4 bedrooms that we rent, they were 3 bedrooms and we rent them out as 4 beds. That's like your average council house, I suppose, So the smaller houses can work, but obviously there's not so many in there. The property we had that we turned it into an 8 bed, eventually we turned it back into a 7 bed, because again the property was a bit too small. The communal areas were a bit too small to support the house. So I would say Victorian houses in the main. None of our properties are brand new at all. They're all kind of the council houses are 1950s. Obviously, the Victorian properties are older than that, So
Dave says, and I think I know the answer to this one already, but we'll just reiterate it. Can you do rent to rent? Can you only do rent to rent on mortgage-free houses?
No. That I would say is the best houses to get, and it's bizarre actually, because a lot of the houses we go for are ex-student HMOs. Of the properties we've ended up with, the 80 rooms, I'd say about 50% of the properties don't have mortgages at all, and that is I think because these properties were kind of owned by old school landlords. And when the students began to move away and stay in the student blocks that had been built for them, these old school landlords were a bit kind of stuck. I would say that a lot of the houses were stuck in the 80s as well, to be honest, the artwork in them and everything. So we've just ended up with a lot of our landlords are older. And the interesting thing is that we're trying to put lease options in place on them as well, but that's like another webinar, I think, for another day. Of the other properties that we think there's mortgages on them, in the early days we did ask to see evidence of that, but we were told in no uncertain terms by a lot of the landlords to mind your own businesses. And really, if you put yourself in their shoes, we come along to rent the property off them as such, then we're demanding to see evidence of the mortgage. We want to see insurances and everything. So that just just slowed everything up, and it was really awkward. So then we spoke to our solicitors, and we asked them to put warranties in the contracts. So we had the contracts drawn up again, and we put warranties in them to ensure us that the owner of the property's got the property on the right mortgage product, and he's got all his insurances in place. And that's to protect us, to make sure everything's done well. But even those properties where we think there's a mortgage on them, they've been HMOs for some time. So there's a good chance that they do have the correct products in place. But I'm not too risk adverse, and as long as I've got the warranties in the contracts to assure me that they have got everything done right, everything's in place, I'm kind of happy to go forward with that, knowing that I'm protected.
Eben asks, you mentioned earlier about your about using eBay to get discounts on furniture. Do you simply just, I know, you're searching sofa or whatever, and you just have a little look, or do you have a particular eBay technique, or is it as simple as just having a search?
As I said, there's 3 sites we use. So the system I've got, okay, I did spend a lot of time on this when we had the first houses. I spent so long buying chests of drawers and wardrobes and stuff, it was driving me insane. And then you wait to see if you're going to win the bid, and you think you've won, and then somebody else would get it behind you, and it would drive me nuts. So then I discovered this other site, like I said, it's called Gixen, Gixen. So I'd look on eBay to find the thing that I wanted to buy, and I'd cut and paste the number off eBay, and I'd put it onto Gixen. And I learned how to use this website, Gixen, in half an hour. It's just simple, So you bid on there, and you can bid in streams. So if I wanted to buy a chest of drawers, I could bid on 10. And if I didn't get the first one, it would automatically bid on number 2. Then it would automatically bid on number 3. And say I won number 4, then it would stop all the other bids, So it just saved me hours and hours and hours. So I'd set these up in streams. I'd go off to bed. I'd get the next day and see which things I'd won. And then I discovered this site, like I said, it was called Anyvan. So I got through that. I got to know the guy who's driving the van, this guy called Wayne. I'd get Wayne to go and collect the things, put it in his store. Then when I was all set for it, get him to bring it to the house. And then we got Will to work for us, our agent. He's our guy. And I trained Will up to do this. So my system now, my own personal system, if I want to get a house furnished ever so cheap, I make one phone call to Will, and that's it for me. I'm done, One call.
Yeah.
So I think of all the systems we've got, that's one of the ones I phoned Will and said, we've got this house, Will, can you just pop round? He goes round to the house. He's got a sheet, so he goes from room to room to room. He's got a black pen and a red pen. He writes all the things in black in the house that are okay. The things that aren't okay or we need to replace, he writes that in red. Then he goes home. He finds a load of stuff to bid on eBay. He uses the system, Gixen, to buy them. As soon as he gets them, he phones up our friend Wayne. Wayne goes and collects them, and then Wayne brings them to the house. But all I've done is made a phone call now, and that's part of the systems where you just want to get your life back, to be honest, Duncan, we save an absolute fortune. I'm talking thousands and thousands.
I think that's fascinating. I love hearing about Gixen. I think what's particularly interesting about that is because with auctions and the eBay, like where most of the money made is the human emotion element. People getting caught up into the emotion of the auction, and that takes that because it's all computerized. That takes all the emotion out of it.
Yeah, it's I think on eBay, because if you think on eBay, people refer to it as they won a thing. I won, some drawers, or the bed, and that's the word that they use, I think, to make you feel kind of good. I won this thing, and I step on, I used to bid for things, just small things, chest of drawers, and my heartbeat going fast. And I think, oh my God, this is just crazy. I've got to stop this. So that's why I decided to get this system in place. Get my life back.
I used to be addicted to tele shopping. I honestly like QVC or any of those programs. I had to ban myself for about 3 or 4 years. I'd buy like steam buggies, instant ab machines, like golf ball. That
was you then, Duncan, was it? I wonder who it was. Buying all that stuff.
Go to McClary, I had a serious problem. I had to go to like an A&E kind of AA meeting. I've got a problem with teleshopping, so I really need a Gixen. Roger asks, you mentioned student properties quite a bit. Do you exclusively do student properties, or is that or you do other like LHA or like what?
Okay. Yeah, maybe I was a bit kind of unclear on that. The properties that we look for were student properties, but we actually rent them out to young professionals, and that's part of our whole kind of thing, really, because when we find the properties that are ex-student properties, often a lot of them are in a bit of a mess. You put your hands on things and it kind of sticks, and you wipe your feet on the way out of the house. So the landlord, the poor old guy, he's got to go around to the house every year. So a lot of these guys don't do interim inspections, so they rent the house out at the start of the year. It gets to the end of the year, the house is handed back, and they know the house is going to be trashed. A lot of the houses I saw were just disgusting, to be honest, but a good clean. We've got 2 lots of cleaners, in fact. We've got the cleaners who clean the houses every week for us, or every 2 weeks, and we pay them £10 an hour. They do about 2 hours in each house. Then we've got the other cleaners. That's the firm we used to do the initial cleaning, and they just scrub everything, and we pay them £15 an hour. So when we take the properties over the student properties, and part of the way we sell it to the landlords is the students are going to be gone, we're going to get these young professionals in, and in Bristol we've got firms like Airbus, Rolls-Royce, Ministry of Defence. So when we talk to the landlord in the sales pitch, we talk about those kind of employers. So if you're thinking about doing rent-to-rent in your area, if you think some big prestigious employers around, the same, because if you say the words like Rolls-Royce and Airbus, people think, oh wow, so it's engineers. Predominantly, we do have a lot of engineers, to be honest, from Airbus, because this place is huge. So we tell the landlord, the students will be gone, we're going to take care of all the mess, all that's going to stop, you're going to get professionals in, and things are going to be really good, really clean, they're going to respect your house. I would make a stance and say that I think LHA and HMOs just don't mix. I did that once for a very short time, and I just think it's a whole load of grief. You've got to be onto that like every day, and I just don't like the world, to be honest. I'm not a snob or anything, but I just, the whole world, it's just not my kind of thing. I do have single lets with LHA guys in, and it's great, but LHA, HMOs, I think it's trouble, I think, and I've been there as well. So I just prefer to work with young professionals.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Dave, which one is this one? Okay, this one's quite. I like this question. So, as a letting agent, if I was trying to pitch or offer a rent-to-rent scheme to the vendor or the owner of the property, in terms of my wording, what's kind of good wording? Would you use the word rent guarantee? Is that like a sort of a key kind of word that often paints a good picture, or do you have some magic wording which you use every time?
No, a word I would never say is sublet, because everybody seems to hate that. It's crazy. But
ideas about that, don't they?
Yeah. Guaranteed rent is good, I think. I think it depends on the deal, because in the early days I'd go around to a house. I think of one house in particular where the guy, his mum, I think he grew up in the house, and then it's his mum's house, and she lived there on her own for 20 years, and then she died. And he inherited the house back, so it was turned into a student house. When we went round to view the house, the students were in there still, and the house was trashed. So I was saying guaranteed rent, and I was going on about the guaranteed rent, and you're going to get your rent paid in your bank all the time, and blah blah blah. And he didn't seem particularly interested. And then after a while, I began to realise all he was talking about in the house was when my mum was here. This place was so nice, and it was really clean, and look at all the mess in here now. And his focus was the house, really. So then I changed my offer. I was saying about we get the cleaner in. I think I said every week, but in fact we get the cleaner in every 2 weeks. But I said, yeah, we get a cleaner in every week. It's a professional cleaner, and they're our kind of spy in the house. We get a guy around to cut the grass. I make sure the weeds are all pulled up in front. I make sure the windows are clean. And then he just changed completely. He was interested. So I would say the thing you've got to do is you've got to find out the motivation of the landlord, and no one's the same. But of course, there's the usual things. There is guaranteeing the rent, guaranteeing the condition of the property. But the big one is really you'll get your life back. You'll be able to go to bed, have a good night's sleep, and you won't have to worry about your property. You won't have to worry about phone calls in the night asking you to change the light bulb in the fridge, and all those calls you get from people, and somebody phoning you up saying, I put some sausages in the fridge and I came in from a pub and they were gone. All that stuff you deal with, all that's gone, because you're going to be the one who's answering all the calls to dealing with the whole thing, and you'll report back to the landlord. And you say to them, if you want me to report back to you once a week, it's fine, or once a month, or we find our report back to the landlords initially once a month, and that would soon become once every 3 months, then once 6, and then annually, to be honest, because you build up the trust. But I suppose the answer to the question is it kind of depends, really. It depends what the landlord wants, really. But offering, I think in our course we've got 17 things we offer, but not to offer everything. The landlord gets scared. Just kind of talk to them and try to ask them things to suss out their pain, really, their motivation, and then kind of aim your offer to go with that.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I just want to reiterate that, because often you'd assume that maybe like money was the key motivator, but like I said, everyone's different, and sometimes it's not even just sometimes. A lot of the time, it's just the peace of mind of knowing that actually you don't have to be like stressing and having, if you want to go on holiday, you can go on holiday without having to worry about your property and actually.
That's huge. Actually, that's huge. Yeah, it's a big one.
And knowing that your property is just going to be looked after, and it's just going to be there, and yeah, I think that's a massive one. So I think that's a really interesting point, because I guess I kind of wrongly assumed often that it would be like money would be the key motivator, but just that peace of mind actually is probably is much more often a selling point for a lot of people.
A big one as well, I think, because if people put their properties with agents, of course they've got the fees, they've got the fee every month. They've got the fees for the interim inspections. They got there's just all these kind of fees. There's also the risk of voids. There's also the risk if someone's got to be evicted out of the house, the agent's not going to pay the fees on that, so you'd have to go to court, and there's all those fees. So you can say all those things are gone because I'm going to guarantee everything. We don't actually guarantee big bills. Like we'll pay anything up to £50, because anything up to £50 has often been a thing that's been damaged in the property, and that's been damaged by somebody in the property. So in that case, we'll charge the tenants the £50, so we're not paying it ourselves. Anything over £50, then the landlord's got to pay. So we don't actually pay for hardly anything ourselves as well. So it's quite cool.
So part of these things, because that's actually this answer actually I'm glad you mentioned that, because that there was a lot of questions coming in from that, like Roger, Dave, Michael, saying about when letting, if there's something requiring maintenance, who repairs it, and especially I think it was Sarah mentioned something about in particular like boilers and stuff. So in just to reiterate, so the things like boilers, big things, actually you don't have any responsibility for those.
No, it's the landlord. The responsibility with us, well, it's not even ours to be honest. The landlord's got to get the boilers serviced every year. So we make sure we know the date of that, and we remind the landlord the week before. So and that's where our responsibilities end. To be honest, because my thoughts on that are that if you take control of a property and the boiler breaks down the next month, well, how do you know the history of it all? And if the landlord's not being kind of completely upfront and open with you as to the state of the house, like there could be some damage in the roof that has to be fixed, and if you just come along, unless you've had a full survey on the house, how do you know the history of the place? So I've never signed a contract with a owner of the property where I'm responsible for anything, to be honest. I say I take care of repairs up to £50, and then I charge the guys in the house for that. I do pay for odds and ends. I do pay for little bits kind of here and there, and like sometimes you've got to. But if the washing machine breaks down in the property, I'll get a phone call to tell me it's broken down. I'll phone the landlord. He'll send somebody around to fix it. I'll phone the guys back to say somebody's going to be able to fix it, and that's me. I'm done. That's all I do.
A couple of questions just coming in about. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the exactly what's involved in sort of the flash drive and the manual, and what that is? I know you mentioned it earlier, but can you mind just reiterating it?
I've got there's one more slide tagged on the end in case I was going to get kind of asked that, and it's these two actually. The first one is what's in our Facebook support group, and you can see the management contract in there. That's cost us £2,000. The commercial lease was put in there by a lady on our course, a lady called Latoya, who's doing it down in Cornwall. That cost her £800, I think. Our Black Ops thing is the other one that's orange here. That's how to find leads direct to landlords, and that's a really cool way. So the reason we put a lot of this in the Facebook support group is if we need to update this, then it's quite easy to do. So we give pretty much everything in there. But the dongle, this is our flash drive with the dongle, so that's a lot of the stuff we put in there. What we've actually done is made up a lot of short film, which you can see number 2. Some of them are like just a minute or two. They're kind of screenshots, and they explain how to use the websites, how to do things. You know, what we try to do on our course actually is to cover absolutely everything. You know, when you've been on training courses, I don't know if you have to, Duncan, and you know, you leave it and you think, I only feel as if I've got kind of half the picture. There's a lot of the things I need, and then they try to do a big kind of upsell to you to give you the other things, and you feel like half the things a bit of a con. Well, we wanted to do things our ways, give people everything. You know, we do have some more events. We have like an agent's day and like an advanced day, but our intro day, you get everything on this to set up a property or 2 or 3. And we actually say to guys coming on our events that if there's anything, I'll just go back to the Facebook one again. If there's anything you think you need that's not in the group or on the flash drive or anything, ask us, and we'll just make sure you get it. So we make sure everybody gets everything, make it work really, because we actually want people to succeed. Because the more people succeed, then the more it kind of helps us. And the success rate in the group we've got is actually huge. You know, it's loads of people getting great results. So.
I think that's fantastic, because I agree. You often get the sort of the carrot dangled in front of your nose, and just enough to get you onto the next level. And then once you get into the next level, you suddenly realise that the promised land isn't quite there, and it's you need one more course to get to the promised land. And
it never is there though, is it? And then you've got to buy the mentorship, and it's going to go on for life, to be honest. Like, you know, but a few people said to us, you know, we started to organise our events. And people have been organising their own events for a long time. What would actually say, you know, to hold some things back. But I thought to me, it felt kind of unethical, you know. So we just like to give. Well, the thing is, we've got a support group. So if people think we're doing things wrong, then they could talk to us in the support group, and you know, so everybody interacts, and it's great. It's really great. You know, I love the community actually of it all. So it's really good.
I think that's one of the key things. Is in. I'm trying to remember exactly who said this, or to be fair, I've heard this numerous times from different people, but it's two of like the key things is just, well, actually, I think it was actually just one mentioned it at Berkshire, I think 2 or 3 months ago, but two of the key things to success are the books you read and the people you hang around with, and having that sort of that power team, that support, you know, everyone raising each other's game. I think it's absolutely it's fantastic, you know. It really is, and especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're starting out, it can be, you know, you have like really good moments, but then, you know, there'll be dips, and you know, it can be a little bit solitary and a little bit lonely, and surrounding yourself in that environment, whether you're going to networking events, you've got a support group, a mastermind, really just everyone ups each other's game, and it's everyone is out to help each other. It's not a you know, dog eat dog, you know, like if I can win if other people fail, or other people, you know, it's nice people do first, and everyone helps each other out, and so I think that having that support is actually really, really, really powerful.
There's that thing they say that I heard as well, that if you help people to get what they want, and often it's not, you'll get the things that you want as well, you know. And I love that, the whole thought of like abundance, which I think most people are into. I wouldn't say all, Duncan, I'd say most, because I found some people are out to see what they're able to get for themselves, right? But you do spot them, I think, and then you stay away from those. But you are, I recall he said that you are the sum total of the people you mix with and the books you read, I think he said, which was great, really. And it's a really good book you mentioned at the start. Do you remember what it's called?
What? Sorry, did I mentioned or somebody else mentioned?
No, you did. All right, it was my book. I was trying to get you to say it again.
Sorry, we didn't practice that as much as we should. We should have gotten the webinar early and actually had that rehearsed. Do you want to try one more time?
Duncan. You mentioned the book at the start. What was that?
Yeah, I read it the other day. It's absolutely fantastic. Mayhem, Murder, and Multiverse. Do you know the author of that?
Okay, the check's in the post, mate. The check's in the post. But there's a website we built actually that's been built. It's www.mayhemmurderandmultilets.com, and that's AND for the and. And the book is available there if you're interested. So thank you very much for mentioning that. It's very good of you.
It's a little plug. Yeah, I like it. So it was seamless.
Have we got any more questions? What else have we got?
We've got guys. If you've we're coming to the end of them, but if you've got any more questions, chuck them in. Armando said, "Hi Francis and Duncan. How do I convince agents from big agencies who are stuck in their bureaucratic ways and who say that they want to be in charge of all the legal paperwork?"
Yeah, that's always a tough one. Often I've tried, to persuade these big firms. And I'm thinking of this one bloke. He was he was a pig. He'd wear his tweeds and he always had his head in the air. He was really sure about everything. A lot of these agencies, this guy would start everything. He would say, "I've been doing this job for 20 years, But in fact, he's been doing the job for 1 year. He's been repeating it for 20 years because if he'd move on with the times, because rent to rent is here to stay, for sure. And I would spend a lot of time with these guys trying to persuade them and trying to break them down. And then I realised at the end of the day that instead of investing all this time trying to break somebody down that's not going to change, there's no way he's going to change. I could be spending that time speaking with other agents. So some of these old school guys, that it's pointless. So it's better sometimes to move on, and then go back and show them when you do get success. By all means, go back to talk to them then, talk to them about your success you had, all these other agents, and then they'll begin to doubt themselves. Because if you analyse rent to rent is absolutely great for everybody, including the agents. They still get paid, but you still do the work. And if you can persuade them of that, but like I said from the start, really, the best way to get to work with agents is to build relationships. And some people you just can't reach. You can't build relationships with everybody. So sometimes it's just better to move on.
Wow, I think we've pretty much covered nearly all the questions. A huge thank you for all your amazing questions. And I say this every time, but I'll say it again. We put on these events, for you guys. We really want to put on, speakers and topics that you guys are really, really interested in. So, we love your feedback. So, if there's anyone you want to hear from, there's topics you want to learn about, then let me know. And if there's enough people who want to learn about it, then I'll go and find out. I'll go and find the expert. But thank you so much for being, so fantastic and answering asking such great questions. And obviously a huge thank you to Francis. You've really stuck around for an hour Q&A, and thank you for that presentation, which was unbelievable. As in, I've got quite a tricky job because I'm half trying to do the admin, but I'm half the other ear is trying to listen in and take notes. And I learned a huge amount personally, and I've heard you speak a few times now, and every time I learn something new. So thank you so much, Francis.
Hey, you're welcome. It's always good fun. I'm really passionate about the whole thing, as you can probably tell. So, thank you for asking me, Duncan. Really appreciate it, and I've enjoyed it this evening. I've loved it. So, thank you very much.
And we got some really lovely comments coming in from loads of people. Odette, thank you. That was absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to the rerun. Karen, thank you, Francis and Duncan. Very informative. Armando, thank you for this presentation and for answering my question. Much appreciated. Brilliant. Thanks so much again. Thanks, guys. And I will let us know who you want to hear from, and I'll go get them. Thanks. Have a great evening.